I have so many more questions for you, but we have a quick round. And I got to fire some quick questions at you, Logan. Here's the first one. What's the point of user friction that you feel like arises due to misinformation or lack of knowledge of your product?
With reasoning models, we have this like dynamic thinking where the model will sort of figure out the right thinking amount to think for a given query. There's a lot of interesting data, and actually some of it just came out like yesterday about, or early this morning, about what happens when you sort of manually configure that parameter. So I think maybe it's something that folks aren't doing manually that they should be doing, which is go and set the thinking budget and like play around for your use case how much the model should think, and then like see how much that differs from what the default that the model thinks it should be spending on a certain problem. Because I do think there's a little bit of a divergence in that case.
What's some data that you and the team need to constantly be on the lookout for that might feel right, but it has downstream effects? Things that developers might want to be aware about when they're interfacing with these models producing things.
The biggest tension point for Google is we have so many customers across so many different domains. And it's like, how do you balance the needs of Google search at the same time that you're balancing the needs of like some random developer building something? And like, that's a non-trivial problem, and something that is like a constant challenge for us to make sure that we do right. And I think the team is more and more finding value in sort of using a bunch of the proxies we get from developers as like the North Star for a lot of stuff, just because like the needs of developers are so varied. Maybe that's not a direct answer to like some of the data that we're trying to avoid, but I think the thing that we in general are trying to avoid is like getting too over indexed on certain stuff. In a lot of cases at the sort of cost of making the model generally better for certain tasks.
I want to ask what a big misconception devs might have about AI, specifically Gemini, when they're daily driving these.
Gemini's not like the best, if not in the top 2 models in the entire world. I think historically, and this is the challenge for us, is to like overcome some of the historical perception about Gemini. But I think we've sort of made up progress and then some, and now across like pretty much most dimensions have the world's most powerful model at like each of the brackets of model capabilities. So I think it's on us to go and tell the world that story now and make it very clear to developers. But I think that's been the biggest misconception, is like people are just, assume we're behind, not for the wrong reasons, probably for the right reasons. But I think the reality is we're not anymore, which is an exciting place to be.
What's on your personal like hit list for things Gemini can't do, but you would use it yourself?
I think proactivity is the biggest one. I think there's just like so much of the magic where if the model was able to sort of see the things that I'm doing and like have access to the same data that I would, it would be able to go and come up with a bunch of work without me ever having to have been involved, and sort of queue that up for me and let me review that and decide which of it I want to proceed with versus not. I think a lot of that you could do today. I think maybe, it'll become more and more possible from a product experience as the model keeps getting better. But I think that's the thing I'm most excited about, is I don't like the idea that we have these intelligent assistants. I have to like dispatch every item of work in the near future. I just think is like not going to be what the world looks like. And so I'm excited for people who are building that product experience. I could imagine like the OS layer on computers has this, where like the right quarter of your screen is just like the models just like queuing up stuff, and you're just like constantly looking at this and being like, okay, here are 15 tasks the model came up with that it might do based on everything that's coming into you, and like which of these do you want to approve versus deny versus like send a follow-up that maybe tweak a couple of these things and come back to me. Like I think that product experience is going to be really, really magical.